Hi, Room 10 kiddos. Now we're on to Chapter 16 of Kate DiCamilla's Because of Winn Dixie. In Chapter 15, we last left Opal and Winn Dixie, and they're at the library with Miss Franny. And Miss Franny's fixing to tell them a story about her great-grandfather who fought in the Civil War. Something tells me we're going to find out what that story is in Chapter 16. Let's see. That's what it is. Chapter 16. Litmus W. Block was just a boy when the firing on Fort Sumter occurred, Miss Franny Block said as she started in on her story. Fort Sumter, I said. Well, it was the firing on Fort Sumter that started the war, said Amanda. Okay, I said, and I shrugged. Well, Litmus was 14 years old. He was strong and big, but he was still just a boy. His daddy, Ortley W. Block, had already enlisted, and Litmus told his mama that he could not stand by and let the South get beat, so he went to fight, too. Miss Franny looked around the library, then she whispered, Men and boys always want to fight. They're always looking for a reason to go to war. It's the saddest thing. They have this abiding notion that war is fun, and no history lesson will convince them differently. Well, anyway, Litmus went and enlisted. He lied about his age. Yes, ma'am, like I said, he was a big boy, and the army took him, and Litmus went off to war just like that. Left behind his mother and his 3 sisters. He went off to be a hero. But he soon found out the truth. Miss Franny closed her eyes and shook her head. What truth? I asked her. Why, that war is hell, Miss Franny said with her eyes still closed. Pure hell. Hell is a cuss word, said Amanda. I stole a look at her. Her face was pinched up even more than usual. War, said Miss Franny, with her eyes still closed, should be a cuss word, too. She shook her head and opened her eyes. She pointed at me and then she pointed at Amanda. You, neither of you, can imagine. No, ma'am. Amanda and me said it at exactly the same time. We looked real quick at each other and then back at Miss Franny. You cannot imagine. Litmus was hungry all the time, and he was covered with all manner of vermin, fleas, and lice. And in the winter he was so cold he thought for sure he would freeze to death. And in the summer, why, there's nothing worse than war in the summertime. It stinks so, and the only thing that made Litmus forget that he was hungry and itchy or hot or cold was that he was getting shot at. And he got shot at quite a bit. And he was nothing more than a child. Did he get killed? I asked Miss Franny. Good grief, said Amanda. She rolled her eyes. Now, Opal, Miss Franny said, I wouldn't be standing in this room telling you this story if he was killed. I wouldn't exist. No, ma'am, he had to live. But he was a changed man. Yes, ma'am, a changed man. He walked back home when the war was over. He walked from Virginia all the way back to Georgia. He didn't have a horse. Nobody had a horse except for the Yankees. He walked, and when he got home, there was no home there. Where was it? I asked her. I didn't care if Amanda thought I was stupid. I wanted to know. Why, Miss Franny shouted so loud that Winn Dixie and Amanda Wilkinson and me all jumped. The Yankees burned it. Yes, ma'am, burned it to the ground. Well, what about his sisters? Amanda asked. She moved around the desk and came to sit on the floor. She looked up at Miss Franny. What happened to them? Dead. Dead of typhoid fever. Oh, no, Amanda said in a real soft voice. And his mama? I whispered. Dead, too. And his father? Amanda asked. What happened to him? Well, he died on the battlefield. Litmus was an orphan? I asked. Yes, ma'am, said Miss Franny Block. Litmus was an orphan. This is a sad story, I told Miss Franny. It sure is, said Amanda. I was amazed that she was agreeing with me about something. Oh, I'm not done yet, Miss Franny said. Winn Dixie started to snore, and I nudged him with my foot to make him quit. I wanted to hear the rest of the story. It was important to me to hear about how Litmus survived after losing everything and everyone he loved. That's the end of chapter 16. We learned about her great-grandfather who went off to fight in the Civil War, and when he came back, did he have anybody to come back to? No. That's quite a sad story. I kind of want to find out what happened to Litmus now. I wonder if we're going to find out in chapter 17 what happens to Litmus after he comes back. At 14, he doesn't have his daddy, his mama, or his sisters. That's awful. Well, I'm sure in chapter 17 we'll find out. But y'all have a great weekend, guys. Love y'all. Miss y'all.